going to finish up by saying that he inspired many other people and many of the innovations that we now take for granted. He inspired the Apple I. Steve said, not an exaggeration to say that Ted invented our world. Is the Bible of the computer lib, right? Is the Bible, as I said, of the homebrew computer club. Lotus Notes, inspired Lotus Notes. Mitch K. Ford said that he is a man who dreamed my dreams before I did. Computer lib inspired me as no other book before or since. And then, of course, there's the web. That's the topic, frankly, that's way too big for me. We're too hot to handle tonight at TED, so I'm going to let the man himself address that. We have a tradition here at the Internet Archive. It's called Friday Lunch. I've been coming to Friday lunches for about 20 years, long before I started working here. And we go around, everyone stands up, we say a few words, what we're working on. The staff does that, guests do as well. There's always guests coming through. You're all invited to Friday lunch. Please RSVP ahead of time. Archive.org. And every Friday that TED comes many Fridays, he stands up and he says some introduction. So last Friday, here's what Ted said. He said, Nelson, non-standard, case-sensitive, special character. So here it is. The special character.
Hello, world. My fundamental motto is.
You have to speak right into it.
My fundamental motto is there's too much to say and it goes in all directions. This is the fundamental problem of writing, description, thinking, and philosophy. So I'll try to say a lot in a short time. Thanks to Brewster and to my other Internet Archive friends for this big chance to spend time with you. Not my actual birthday, which was several weeks ago. And thank you, my friends from all over elsewhere, for coming when I haven't got time to chase you down individually. I feel very gruntled. This is a unique chance to talk to you collectively. What shall I talk about? I could start with talking about my software aspirations, but that would be boring. Instead, let me reminisce and ramble. Think of how ideals have driven us through these decades of computerization, always thinking we were building a better world, and always the fascination of the ideas driving us on, and the remarkable people driven by those ideas. So here are a few anecdotes from a long career, including some of the wonderful people I've met. First, the origin story. Well, you just heard it. I'll be quick. As a child, I wanted to be Walt Disney and Frank Lloyd Wright, and, quote, have my own studio, whatever that would mean. This idea has driven me all these years. From childhood, I was a dreaming futurist, thinking we'd have an Art Deco rocket ship world. But I was also from a literary family, and I was always trying radical lifestyle experiments. I was an early adopter of everything. When I was 7 or 8, I saw an ad for something called kangaroo spring shoes. And there were these big springs you would strap on your feet. And I thought I would bound down the street in like 7-league boots, and instead I sprained both ankles immediately, very painfully. And so I did a lot in college. I published my own magazine, copies are available downstairs, wrote the first rock musical, nearly got expelled fighting for sexual freedom, these were the 50s. Ended my college years making a comedy film, so coming out of college I thought I was a filmmaker mainly. That was my real talent. I wanted to make movies and to be a generalist. I had hopes of being a, quote, major thinker, a term you heard in those days. I was determined not to narrow down. I thought I would go on with my songwriting and essays on many subjects. This was a bad plan. But it meant I was ready to branch out further. When I took a computer course in 1960 and I saw there would be computer screens, put those together. Dreaming futurist, literature, media savvy, radical lifestyle experiments, early adopter. From all of this came my vision of hypertext. So let's see now. Here's the PDP-1. Here's the PDP-1 that I saw advertised. Somewhere I still have the original brochure, probably, maybe Jason has already digitized it, for the PDP-1 that thrilled me so. But all I could find on the web is this picture that doesn't convey the excitement I felt when I saw it 56 years ago. You could put screens on computers and make them interact. Well, it was obvious to me as a media guy, knowing a lot about the history of movies and whatnot, that the computer screen would be the new home of the human race. And eventually, millions would be self-publishing around the world. I wanted to create the documents I imagined for these screens, believing myself uniquely qualified. So there's a special kind of document I wanted to create since then. Jason has suggested a name I dare not speak, for documents with visible bridges to sources, identities, and connections that people make. And I wasn't going to narrow down. I thought I would create the first personal computer company. I would call it the General Creative Corporation, like General Electric and General Dynamics. I was going to be the figurehead and chief designer. In other words, I invented Steve Jobs, but too early. Well, I didn't get to found personal computing or worldwide hypertext, but I sure tried. I started telling everybody about my ideas, and they generally thought I was crazy. The first person I talked to about my ideas was Isaac Asimov. And I said to him, this was at a party given by, lost my place here. Yeah, so this was a party given by John W. Campbell, the editor of Astounding in Cambridge, Mass. There were just a few people there. Myself, Asimov, Hal Clement, and a couple of others. Mrs. Campbell. At one point I went to Asimov and I said, Mr. Asimov, soon we'll be reading and writing on computer screens. And the great futurist sneered, yeah, sure. But I knew I was right. I had a lot of hubris. You may remember a song in the 1970s. Well, you're so vain, you probably think this song is about you. Well, I actually did think this song was about me because I dated Carly Simon while she was still at Newsweek. Wonderful person. I believe I gave her the title of one of her songs, which was These Are the Good Old Days. So, then, but she may have thought I was vain. She still refuses to identify the party she was singing about, so I consider myself to be still in the running. It's a kind of epi-para-meta honor. Okay. John Mauchly. John Mauchly, the man who led the secret development of the ENIAC computer during World War II. He was a wonderful guy, warm and enthusiastic. We became quite close in his late days. I interviewed him on tape for a possible autobiography or biography, but he could not stick to a subject or finish a story. I wondered how he could possibly have run such a project. But then I went to his memorial service, and they were all there. The kids who had worked for him during the war, now middle-aged, but as sharp as could be. And then I understood what he had done. He had inspired them, and they had done the work. Mauchly also told me about a little problem of credit. Do you remember the von Neumann machine, where programs and data were going to share the same memory? Mauchly said von Neumann stole that idea. Mauchly's group was under military secrecy, but his group was instructed to tell von Neumann everything. So they told von Neumann they planned to put the data in the program in the same memory, and he published it and got the credit, and so a computer with only one memory is called a von Neumann machine. Mauchly was still very annoyed about it 30 years later. Douglas Engelbart. And there's some pictures downstairs, if you got the card-sized pictures, of Doug with wings and a halo that Marlene, my wife, took. There's just a still from a movie that we happened to see, but unretouched. Many of you know about Douglas Engelbart, one of the greatest men of the modern world, much of which he invented. I met Doug Engelbart in 1966 when his work was little known, 2 years before his famous demo in December. Oops. What happened? When his work was little known, 2 years before his famous demo, when he showed the whole world, or at least a lot of computer scientists in San Francisco, what could be done with text on screens. Make sure you watch that demo straight through. It's all over the net. When I first met Doug Engelbart in 1966, I was working for Harcourt Brace Publishers in New York, traveling west with my boss, William Jovanovic. Doug showed us a lot of his inventions: the mouse, word processing, there was no word for it at the time, screen sharing, document sharing, all of which were completely radical to most of the world. The screens responded slowly, but it was obvious that would get better. Doug was warm and friendly. His love of people shone through him all his life. When Doug showed me the mouse, I immediately changed my mind and decided that the mouse, not the light pen, would be the pointing device of the future. And someone else in the lab named Smokey convinced me that the skateboard would be the transportation of the future. I took it up when I was 40 and it didn't work very well. Oh well, you can't get everything right. I also had tried unicycle and that wasn't practical either. Anyway, my boss, Bill Jovanovic, didn't see the potential of what Doug and his team were doing. Instead, Jovanovic took me to meet Richard Atkinson at Stanford, who wanted backing from Jovanovic for a system of computer-assisted instruction. When I tried to tell Atkinson about hypertext, he thought I was talking about instruction with artificial intelligence, and he bellowed, "We can't do that yet." I thought Richard Atkinson was the most pig-headed individual I had ever met. But that may be why he later became president of the whole University of California. Back to Doug Engelbart. Over the years, I got to know Doug better and better. In 1988, 22 years after our first meeting, Doug and his wife Ballard came to my 51st birthday party, a memorable night on my first houseboat. The cops came twice because of the noise. Then I had to call the cops a third time because a drunken woman wanted to drive home, and I wanted them to stop her, and the cops told me to keep her prisoner until she sobered up. And she swore at me for hours, a bitter ending to an otherwise swell party. Later, Doug agreed to play my father in my little... Oh, I see. I hit the wrong arrow while I was pointing at the wrong thing. Yes. Later, Doug agreed to play the father in my little movie, Silicon Valley Story, which got waylaid on becoming its way to being a feature. But Doug's part was particularly sweet. That's on my YouTube channel also. Sadly, support of Doug's work was dropped by SRA shortly after his great demo. Doug was especially angry that his office was taken away by a certain artificial intelligence guy who just wangled it away by talking to Doug's boss.
Yeah, organizational politics is so
Machiavelli. Hang your head over.
Over you go.
A couple of years later, a couple of years ago, at the memorial for John McCarthy, I accidentally spilled beer on a bystander. Ironically, it was the same AI professor who'd stolen Doug's office long before, so I felt good about it. Doug was wonderfully kind and naive. He knew little about evil or unkindness. One night he and I watched a documentary on the bad treatment of Chinese Americans, and he said, "Do people know about this? Shouldn't we tell everybody?" Marlene and I stayed at Doug's house many times over the last 25 years, and he was always sweet and kind. Marlene and I actually set up a double date introducing Doug to my mother, a charismatic and domineering actress. Both of them were recently widowed, but she was very interested in him, but he backed away very fast. He recognized her dangers. Talk about road not taken. Often Doug would say to me that he and I should have teamed up, but when maybe 15 years ago I proposed an Engelbart Nelson Computer Club, he made an octopus gesture to indicate that he found the idea threatening. For years, Marlene hesitated to marry me, but she wanted Doug to perform the ceremony. When we saw that he was failing, that persuaded her, and Marlene and I were at last married at Frank Lloyd Wright's Civic Center in Marin, with Doug and Karen Engelbart officiating. And by the way, if you have not been to Frank Lloyd Wright's Civic Center in Marin, it's the best outing you can have. It sits on 3 hills. It's boomerang shaped, sits on 3 hills. And the center hill is the cafeteria, so you can walk out into the garden. No reservations. There's a lovely garden with a little pond where the ducks fiddle around, and you can get married there as I have twice. So, a year later, they held a memorial service for Doug Engelbart at the Computer History Museum. In my talk, I pointed out that the same people who had stabbed him in the back were there at the Computer History Museum that night of the memorial to act as if they had supported him. I could barely finish my talk because I was weeping so, and I closed with the quote from Julius Caesar, where Mark Antony speaks to Caesar's body. Here I go again. "Oh, pardon me, thou bleeding piece of earth, that I am meek and gentle with these butchers. Thou art the ruins of the noblest man that ever lived in the tide of times." Doug was a very great man and might have given us a much better world if he'd been able to go on with the software he wanted all of us to have. Now for someone less famous but also great. Roger Gregory. I met Roger Gregory in 1975, I think, and I made him sign a non-disclosure for Xanadu as we drove through the night in my Dodge van. Roger is a libertarian polymath. He knows a lot about science, and when we met, he'd been thinking about the possibilities of electronic documents. When I told him my methods and designs, he signed onto my Xanadu project and made it his as well. This gave the Xanadu project a big technical kick forward. In the summer of 1979, 4 years later, our team worked out the great Xanadu structure, the design for documents, and the addressing scheme. Roger was the lead techie. I laid down the specs and ran the meetings, but it was Roger who led the design of the Tumblr universe, an addressing system for every character, link, and compound document in the hypertext universe we were designing. Alas, the URL pushed all that aside. You've all heard the reference to rocket science. Well, Roger is a rocket scientist and has a patent on his own rocket engine. There are many stories about Roger that are unsuitable for this occasion. But one of the things I want people to know is that he has a heart of gold. My favorite Roger story is when someone tried to rob him. A guy came to the door and pointed a shotgun at Roger and demanded his money. What did Roger Gregory do? He grabbed the shotgun, turned it around, and tried to shoot his assailant. Luckily, the gun did not work. When the police were called, they claimed to find some marijuana and LSD in Roger's apartment, so they arrested Roger and handcuffed him to a chair. In the chair next to him was the supposed evidence. Resourcefully, Roger managed to lean over and eat the marijuana and LSD. Roger does not remember the next 24 hours, but they had to let him go. The moral is, don't screw with Roger Gregory. Click on the right thing before I... Yes. Thomas Kuhn. In the Resistors Computer Club, I befriended several young folks, one of whom you'll meet shortly. One club member was a 12-year-old who turned out to be the son of Thomas Kuhn, the man who popularized the words paradigm and paradigm shift. I told Tom Kuhn my suggestions for related terms. Paradigm warp, the other's view as misunderstood through your own, and, thank you, paradigm stereo, being able to see something and understand it through two different paradigms at once. So I asked Tom Kuhn how he felt about my expanding his terminology in this way, and Tom Kuhn said, "Do what you like with it, I've run it into the ground already." Another Kuhnian recollection. Dining at the Kuhn home, I learned that Thomas Kuhn had been a junior fellow at Harvard. The Harvard Society of Fellows is a very little-known elite club. It is a great honor to be a junior fellow in the Society of Fellows at Harvard, a 2-year free ride at Harvard for smart people just out of college. The eminent former junior fellows included Marvin Minsky, Thomas Kuhn, and Daniel Ellsberg, and many other famous intellectuals. Now, I had wanted more than anything to be a junior fellow, but the person recommending me did not get my application in on time. I said to Tom Kuhn, it seems to me that Harvard Junior Fellows all have had careers that can be easily described in a single sentence. Kuhn put down his knife and fork and stared at the wall for a long time. Then he said, I can't think of a single counterexample. So I felt much better, because like Groucho Marx, there's no simple summary sentence I can fit into that I want to be part of. Now for an interesting story with several parts. It's a three-cushion shot involving Jim Blinn and Richard Stallman and someone we will refer to as Lola. Jim Blinn is a computer graphics pioneer and mathematician who had to sleep in the cold computer room to get successive computer runs without waiting delays. The result was Jim's great flyby movies of NASA missions, as on the left. Now, people thought they were real movies of our space probes passing the planets, as if taken from some other vantage point. But of course, they were simulated pictures as if seen by another camera passing by. On one memorable occasion in the 1970s, I walked with wonderful Jim Blinn through Disneyland, comforting him because he had been ditched by the woman we're calling Lola. But the Disneyland rides and our conversation made him feel better. That same young woman turned up in my life again at the first hacker conference in 1981. I walked on the beach with Richard Stallman, comforting him because he'd been ditched by the woman we're calling Lola. But after we had exhausted that topic and he felt better, our walk continued, and Stallman told me he was going to build his own version of Unix and his own copyright system, and I said, good luck. Very few ambitious plans turn out the way Stallman's did. Magnificently, with GNU, copyleft, his own foundation. Stallman gets a lot of credit, but not enough. Unfortunately, Stallman's version of Unix is now mostly called Linux. Stallman's original build of Unix, called GNU, was not set up for the Intel architecture. Stallman was waiting till Intel had memory protect or some such thing. So Linus Torvalds created a Unix kernel for that hardware and got all the credit for what is now called Linux, all the other parts being Stallman's work. So whenever Linux is mentioned, it's important to mention Stallman. Marvin Minsky. Marvin Minsky inspired generations of students and impressed the hell out of everybody. He was brilliant and mischievous. I made a pilgrimage to see him in 1966, I think. He was preoccupied with the ping pong robot that he thought he would have working by the next year. I saw him from time to time and stayed at Marvin and Gloria's wonderful house in the famous attic guest room. I believe they bought the house for $10,000 because it was on a road that was about to be demolished to make way for a freeway. But then that freeway was canceled. So they did very well. So in the 70s, he said to me, the famous attic guest room that many famous people have stayed at. In the 70s, Marvin said to me, just think, soon you'll walk through a supermarket and the products will call out to you, buy me, or I'll be killed. In 1980, I think it was, we held a Xanadu hyperconference at the MIT AI lab, and I made some impassioned remarks against the educational system. Marvin replied, but Ted, we've got to have schools. How else are we going to keep them out of the churches? When we last went out to dinner with the Minskys a few years ago, I made a video of Marvin spread-eagling himself from the outside on the picture window of the restaurant, as if crucified. I hope I can find that video sometime. So those are a few of my anecdotes. It's fun to name drop. I'm sure many people here have stories that are just as good, but as it's my birthday party, I got to present mine. Now let me introduce my friend of 47 years, Lauren Sarno, another fast-talking New Yorker with a background in show business and technology.
I met Ted in 1970. Within a couple of weeks, he put me to work. He's been doing it ever since. At the time Ted and I met, I was a member of what was believed to be the world's first computer club proposal. At least no one has come forward to contradict us yet. It was the age of the Vietnam War and resistance to the war, so we named ourselves the Resistors, the radically emphatic students interested in science, technology, and other research studies. Pretty good, I can say that right. Our mentor was the much mourned Claude Kagan, an engineer from Alsace who had settled in New Jersey, working for Western Electric. Claude provided us with a barn near Princeton, which was replete with ancient computers, including a room-sized Burroughs vacuum tube monstrosity that we would fire up occasionally with the risk of shorting out half of Pennington, plus Western Electric decommissioned equipment, plus all the timeshare access Claude could beg for us. After hearing Ted speak at the Society for Information Display, Claude invited Ted to come meet his kids. The motto Claude created for the Resistors was each one teach one. So we were happy to explain what we were learning to anybody who was interested. With Ted's enthusiasm and boundless curiosity, he fit right in. We may have been kids and Ted may have been 33, but he was one of us with a car. Ted has often said that he learned more from us than we did from him. And as far as operating system procedures that were in use at the time, that may have been so. But in return, Ted introduced us to an entirely new concept. Remember, at this time, 1970, people communicated with computers using punch tape or punch cards. Except for the military and air traffic controllers, there was no such thing as an interactive screen. Ted told us that in the future we would all be writing, communicating, and doing business on the interactive screens and typewriter-sized computers that did not yet exist. He said there would be a global communications network that would allow us to self-publish documents worldwide with visible side-by-side connections between our documents and any source documents or any kinds of visible links we cared to create, forward or back. He called this hypertext. We were kids, so our minds were flexible. We thought, well, of course, this is exactly what technology is for. The Resistors were a bunch of misfits who found their peer group. Our bond persists. Nat Kuhn, who introduced me to Ted when Nat was 12 and I was 14, last year officiated at Ted's and my wedding. As anyone who knows Ted's history, or even anyone who has seen Werner Herzog's documentary Lo and Behold, can attest, Ted is nothing if not persistent. I prefer to call it constancy. Ted's life is characterized by the friendships he has maintained. From the friends on our lane in rural New Jersey that Ted has known since their birth, to his high school friends and teachers, his college friends and professors, his friends and colleagues in the US, Japan, England, and Australia, Ted has remained constant. It is a testament to Ted's constancy that his first wife, Deborah Stone, the mother of Ted's only child, Eric Nunsuch Nelson, is our most cherished family member, second only to Eric. And a testament to Debbie's character, that she is always there for us. Sorry. Which brings us to Marlene Malakote. For 23 years, Marlene was Ted's companion and later wife. As a software designer, she understood and valued his work. She managed the logistics of his life on 3 continents. And most importantly, she created the time and the supportive environment in which Ted could work. Somehow, She also found time to be loving and endlessly generous to innumerable family and friends. In the last weeks of her life, Marlene asked for Debbie Stone, Ted's first wife, and Debbie and Ted cared for Marlene at home, on the boat, until she passed away. We miss her every day. Mary, Brewster, thank you for being constant friends to Marlene and Ted. And thank you for accepting me into your lives. And Theo, Ted, Theodore, happy 80th birthday, sweetheart. You've earned our love many times over. May we all live to celebrate decades more.
So Ted will now recite a poem he wrote for Marlene, and he's going to recite it twice because the first time I heard it, I asked to hear it again.
Oh, thank you.
I published this in the Oxford magazine in 2008. Now, there are a number of different Oxford magazines. This is the one actually published in Oxford, England. The spermatozoon had little to go on, tunneling into the mist, but a faraway flavor to seek and to savor of spices contrived for the tryst. Her chemical gradient, welcoming, radiant, summoned him to her embrace, just as something between us, some beacon of Venus, has beckoned me here to this place, where you open for me, receive me, adore me. How hither came I, who can tell? Like each nano-ancestor, who finding her, blessed her, I followed so blindly, so well. The spermatozoon had little to go on, tunneling into the mist, but a faraway flavor to seek and to savor of spices contrived for the tryst. Her chemical gradient, welcoming radiant, summoned him to her embrace, just as something between us, some beacon of Venus, has beckoned me here to this place, where you open for me, receive me, adore me. How hither came I, who can tell? Like each nano-ancestor who finding her blessed her, I followed so blindly, so well. Now for something completely different. Why did I not get on any of the bandwagons, like Apple and Microsoft and the World Wide Web? Because I thought my designs were better. But alas, it's hard to get leverage. I didn't find my Wozniak or Paul Allen.
Yeah, and Theo, I mean this in the nicest possible way. It's also because you're impossible to market. You cannot cram your universe ideas into an elevator pitch.
Yeah. Okay, we'll skip the elevator. I won't bore you with a lot of technicalities. I won't bore you with my designs that were somewhat different from Apples of the Web. But let me amuse you with a couple of my inventions that were very different. The phantasm array.
Microphone.
This illustration is from a patent application I did in the 1960s. It may have been sent to the patent office as late as 1972. I didn't have the money to pursue it. It's a wacky computer I designed for CGI. I worked on photorealistic animation in my own way from 1961 to 1972. Here was a hybrid computer I designed for representing a surface. The illustration shows a backplane with posts sticking up. You can see how a bow-type shaped module, you see the bow-type shaped modules and how triangular modules were slid down between the posts. This was a special purpose computer to represent a surface as a triangular polygon mesh. The triangular polygon mesh is now standard for 3D graphics, but in the 60s I figured it out independently. Now look at this picture. Of course, it was never built. Is it silly? I find it very amusing. But this is the first audience with which I've had a chance to share that amusement. I didn't get the patent, but I worked hard on it. These are the drawings. The rest of the patent application is in my book, The Scene Machine. And of course, CGI is everywhere now in awesome perfection, as we've seen in Avatar, Jungle Book, and all of today's movies. All of them. I mean, the list of compositors, even in a drawing room comedy, is as long as your arm. Anyone can fake any movie now with perfection. It's just a matter of budget. I predicted this in a preprint in 1965 for the Society of Motion Picture and Television Engineers, which is printed in the Scene Machine. But let's talk about my main invention. Yes. Oh yes, I'm running Windows XP under VMware on a Mac. Now, why Windows XP? Because they don't mention this. They say, oh, Windows 10 is just like Windows XP. It has a thing that jumps up. No, 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 no. On Windows XP, you can make your own cascading menus. They don't mention that. Okay. Many of you know about Xanadu documents visibly. Oh, okay. Let's go to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Many of you know about Xanadu documents visibly connected with visible bridges. Thank you. Jason has suggested another name for them I dare not speak. But why parallel pages with visible bridges? Let me ask rhetorically, what is the topology of thought? We can't go there. It's much too complicated. So let us ask instead, what should be the topology of documents? I suggest visible connections with parallel pages, making the implicit connections of literature visible. So here's the best demo so far. You can see it on my YouTube channel, The Ted Nelson. But what I want to show you is something else. Okay, so this is my proposed literary genre, which alas, my proposed literary genre is not available yet for editing and using real connected documents, but we've come so close. I've been trying to get these documents working past this demo stage for decades. Many of you have seen this demonstration. You can now download it and run it yourself at Xanadu.com. I finally put it up. But what you don't know is that my other main invention is inside it. So here we are at ZigZag. Now what is ZigZag? It is, or hyperthogonal structure. I'll go quickly. There's lots about ZigZag on YouTube. ZigZag is my fundamental alternative to hierarchy, a non-hierarchical universe with animated transitions. So as I step through different views, notice that the transitions are all animated. This is very carefully done. The point is that when you press a key, the system calculates the next position of everything and then tweens it so you get to the next one smoothly. I call this swarfing, a combination of swooping and morphing, because you see, swooping is when you move a whole object and morphing is when you move its interior parts. So it's really all the same, it's all the same mechanism. So here is a regular rectangular spreadsheet or table. But why does it have to be rectangular? Think of the Mendeleev's table of elements. Is that rectangular? I don't think so. You need all kinds of irregularities for all kinds of things. So the point is to be able to create new cells and new structures that point in any direction. Notice that the two windows are mirroring each other in this particular instantiation. Okay, so now let's go back to the Xanadu demonstration. Where is it? Did I kill it? No, here we are. Yeah. Okay, so if I press escape, we will see that ZigZag is inside Xanadu space. Hello? Escape. There we are. One. And here we are in the actual zigzag mechanism inside Xanadu space that gives us that smooth swarfing of the documents. This was a wonderful job done by Robert Adamson Smith, who unfortunately had to go do other things. So this is the structure of cross lists, which ZigZag is about. ZigZag, when we talk about dimensions in ZigZag, they're not Euclidean. They're listing dimensions, which is very hard for some people to understand. Okay. So my vision combines these two inventions, connected documents and non-hierarchical structure, in ways I don't have time to show. So that's what I do. It's not easy, especially working with volunteer programmers. I pray to get robust versions of my software out while I'm alive, but nobody's supporting that work right now. It'd be nice to get that support while there's still a chance. I'm likely to live quite a while longer, and I desperately want to finish the software I've been trying to develop all my life, especially documents with visible connections. But for the last 30 years, I've been working with volunteer programmers, some of them wonderful but very hard to keep on track, sometimes not cleaning up the code, eventually having to dance off to their real lives, leaving me with only demos. There's a huge number of good programmers out there, from Silicon Valley to Estonia. Estonia, they sometimes say, but they need real money, which I can't afford. And there are people out there who'd like me to see me finish it. So, remember the company I wanted to start in 1961, General Creative? Well, we have the domain name, generalcreative.com. The question is what to do with it. So you ask, what about crowdfunding with Kickstarter or Indiegogo? Answer, it's a great big effort. You have to send out a lot of tchotchkes, tweet like mad, you can't get more than 300K, and then you still have to start a company. Okay, what about a nonprofit? Answer, you're walking on eggshells with all the rules. The profit company's up front. Okay, why not go public in the USA? Answer, because of all the venture capitalist and IPO nonsense and SEC rules galore. You have to be very careful about what you say. I wouldn't enjoy that. I wasn't going to talk about this. This was not in the script until last Tuesday, when Brewster encouraged me at lunch and said he would support the idea. I've thought of an unusual trick, a new kind of crowdfunding, going public overseas. It is not generally known, and I surprised somebody in the lobby with this just a few minutes ago. It is not generally known that you can go public in England or Ireland for under 100,000, with no VC hassle, no SEC complications, and sell stock worldwide. I'm thinking of doing that, but if you'd buy stock in my hypothetical overseas company, you're really backing my ideas, not expecting profit. But there remains that possibility as a guiding star. The SEC has nothing to say if you promote stocks in another country, especially in a company that doesn't exist. And they're less litigious over there. So I'm inviting you to support generalcreative.com in whatever form it may take. A company in England or crowdfunding or whatever. But don't think of General Creative as an investment. Think of it as a vote for me. And what am I running for? For the finish line.
Yes.
I have a lot to finish in an unknown number of years, but I see that I have a lot of friends to cheer me on. So I'm asking you to help me with General Creative in whatever form that may take. There's a sign-up sheet downstairs. As an affirmation of what I stand for and have always stood for: freedom, creativity, originality, not just being different, but what I've always striven for: originality in depth.
Well done.
TM. Now Lauren and I will sing our closing song. Pitch pipe. Pitch pipe.
That'll work.
Get the words out. Where's my song lyrics? Hey, it got lost. All right, I'm sharing yours.
Okay.
Today is yesterday's tomorrow. Tomorrow, today'll be yesterday.
So let's be careful what we borrow. that someone's somehow gonna have to pay.
Dum dum.
Today is yesterday's tomorrow. Tomorrow, today'll be yesterday.
And everywhere you look is sorrow until you learn the trick to look away.
Dum, dum.
Someday it all will have been reckoned, and others who don't care will have their way.
So do not waste a precious second of life of loving living out today.
Dum dum, don't ask for whom the bell is tolling.
Just one of many tolls along the way.
As long as you and I keep rolling, the bells of hell won't get to have their say. Dum 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 dum. Thank you. And thank you.
A wonderful Jason is going to pop up, and I know we ran a little over time, but do you guys want to stick around for like 10 minutes of Q&A? Sure. Okay, Jason.
I didn't fall. I didn't fall. I'm so proud of myself.
I'm so proud of you.
Let's have it again for the.
Whoa, let me pull up General Creative too.
That's good. Hi. Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. Yay. It's literally been like visiting my incredibly intelligent and amazing grandparents.
That's not what you said at the farm.
Anyway.
You guys are like my crazy grandparents.
Yes.
Thanks, bud.
So since for some people this is our lives are built from stories. So some people want to add a little thing of I asked Ted this question. So the question is does anyone have a burning question for a smart man on his 18th birthday?
Or for a smart lady.
That is for a smart lady. Does anyone have a thought? I'm going to make it more insistent.
Oh, Brewster.
You go.
Not quite a question. But I think I figured him out, or at least I was trying really hard on this. When we were doing Waze, this sort of early publishing system, of course, read everything that he'd written, and the idea was to try to make computer literature happen. And we had this idea of building this worldwide search system and things, and I had to finally meet Ted Nelson in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And it was one of those my dinner with Andre's gone wrong kind of so why are we talking the same language? I've been looking forward to this for so long, and it was like, okay, I sort of put forward sort of how this sort of internet publishing thing or internet publishing thing would happen, and it was not what he was saying at all. It was going to be completely different. And I came away with an understanding that I still hold, I think is true. It was the difference that we were coming from is I was trying to make a reader's machine. A machine, a screen where you could find anything you wanted. It was a reader's paradise. And I think that you were trying to make a writer's machine. Something that would express the complexity of your own thoughts. And the struggle was to go and make it so you could map that, not only so that you could see it, but others could see it and build on it. So I think that we have currently, actually, the World Wide Web and what the internet has become is kind of a reader's machine, and we have still yet to write your dream of the writer's machine.
Wonderfully put.
Does it work?
Yes. I'd like to add an article I recommend wholeheartedly by John McPhee, that's M-C-P-H-E-E, in the New Yorker. It's called Structure. And he talks about his first assignment for the New Yorker 30 or so years ago. And he got all of his notes. And he lay on a picnic table, paralyzed for 2 weeks, I think it was, unable to know where to start. Because the problem of writing, you see, if you're trained as a technical writer, you make an outline. If you're doing for the New Yorker, you make a through line, a starting point and editorials, for example. You have a zinger at the beginning and a zinger at the end, and you try to find a pathway between them, using as much of the content as you can. And I learned this instinctively without knowing that's what it was called. And but McPhee, in expressing the paralysis he felt, shows the enormous complexity of dealing with explaining complicated things and writing about them. And that's the whole issue. Thanks, Bruce.
Do we have any other questions? And this boldness will ensure, I think these are the three questions we'll have.
Yes.
So we'll start left to right.
Yeah, my question is, of all the prefixes you've chosen for hypertext, why did you choose hyper?
Simply out of the notion of hypercube, which I read about from, I believe, Flatland, or reading about multidimensionality as a lad. So a hypercube was a cube in more than 3 dimensions, and that was, so it's extended and general was my sense of it. Whereas my father-in-law said, no, hyper means it's a terrible condition, it's a terrible psychological condition. So we were always at loggerheads. On the other hand, I'm kind of both, so there we are. Multidimensional and agitated.
Hello, happy to be here.
Thank you.
This is an engineering question. So, in the current World Wide Web, we see that there is the footprint of your idea of the hypertext. But clearly,
the shadow
technology is a lot different because you have many layers of technology. You have the web, HTML, CSS, the TCP. Instead, you create everything from scratch. In the 7 years of your job, you made everything from zero to the interface. So the question is, when is it became clear that it has to be split in many layers of technology?
I'm having trouble understanding your English.
This is Italian accent.
Yes. You're talking about many layers of technology. Look, if Berners-Lee had just created the URL, that would have done it. You'd have had the web, shop windows. So he didn't need to do any of the other stuff. But so all those other layers are irrelevant. And of course, all the garbage that's in the browser now, sliding windows, and hard carriage returns, so that those of us who are farsighted have to scroll from left to right to read anything. It's outrageous. No, I hate the web very much. Of course, I'm on it all day.
Yeah.
To speak to his point a little bit about the idea of markup not being in the intrinsic.
Oh, right. Thank you. Yes. Embedded markup is the root of all evil, because that means that you can only use a thing once. The whole point of Xanadu is that you have clean content that you reuse many ways, and you mark it up with external links, which are little tables that say do this, do that, the other thing. So you can do everything with external links, but then one person doesn't spoil it for the next guy. So that the same content can be quoted everywhere, and you can choose which links from the pool of links to apply. So it's an entirely different concept. Yeah, don't cut them short. As long as they want to stay, Jason, let them stay.
Oh, no.
No?
No.
You can leave, but you've got your own car.
I want birthday cake. I'm sorry.
Well, as they filter out, look, people ask me, I ask people how, they ask me to speak, I say, how long can I talk? They say, as long as you like, within reason. And I say, which is it? At the University of Toronto, I spoke for 8 hours until there were 7 people left. And, hey, Bucky Fuller would speak for 5 hours, and I didn't see anybody leaving. So, if you want to go. Let those who want to stay.
That's the segue I want, because I want to ask you, Jen. First of all, happy birthday.
Thank you.
And, Bucky Fuller, do you still describe yourself as a generalist, and if so, how has that evolved, and what does it mean in 2017?
Thank you. Yes, I have a number of hypotheses in other fields. My hypothesis that the center of the Earth is actually a spinning ball of plasma appears to have appeared now among astronomers. I'm not bothering to follow this. That will shake out as it may. my theory of psychology, which I call biostatus. You can look it up. That you have. Thank you. That you're essential. That morale can be described as a sort of liquid, which and you have a current reading, and manic depressive have a greater oscillation, and everybody has a fixed level, and biostatus can be built up, it can be stolen, etc., etc. My hypothesis about the pteranodon is that the spear of the pteranodon was used when they spotted a target. They would lower the head and fire away, fire themselves in. That's why the Texas pteranodon is the largest pterosaur that ever lived, because they got a lot of meat to eat. Think of other. Anyway, so yeah, I have.
Has your concept? I think the part of the question was: has your concept of yourself as a generalist, or has your concept of being a generalist evolved?
No, and alas, I read too much about different things that I shouldn't be reading. But damn it, it's all interesting, right? and see, the problem with the educational system. Problem one. The problem with the educational system is the curriculum. So the curriculum means racetrack, right? No, I don't think that. And so the point is that it's a racetrack, and so it's a schedule on which everything has to have a certain timing. Now that means that the people who are having difficulty with the point can't stay on it. The people who love a point can't stay on it, and the people who are bored stiff with that point can't go on. But that's because, of course, really the educational system is about scheduling teachers' classrooms, right? So, and everything else is window dressing, because that's how bureaucracies work. But the point is that if we had an educational system in which you were allowed to follow your interests and merge them with some sort of curriculum, I would rather call it an ambiculum or perhaps a cafeterium. So I'm not against testing. None of this guitars on the lawn crap. I'm saying that we tell you what you're supposed to learn, and you choose how to learn it, and we make those resources available. Well, of course, where does that leave the teacher? You see, what does that do with the occupational structure? What does that do with tenure? Yeah. Okay, anyway. So about being a generalist, yes. There's so much out there. Wikipedia is despite Jason's excellent criticism of Wikipedia is quicksand. It's very hard to get on.
The wiki hole.
The wiki hole, yeah. Some articles of which are read for people to read and understand, and others of which are read only for written only for specialists. Well, you pay your choice. Thank you, Gordon.
So let's do this as a matter of. So we're an interesting junction here. So first, there's two people who leaked out over their schedules and stuff. I just wanted to cover them. First of all, again, the phrase we're looking for is general creative, and that word to be looking forward, and that's downstairs. We also wanted to mention that there are amazing opportunity to help clean the sort. So we should definitely cover that.
Here, we'll do really
quickly.
In August, Ted and I will be beginning a project of clearing through the storage containers that are in Sausalito. Jason is the angel who was going through the storage containers in New Jersey.
And it's a long process that involves a lot of putting things in bags and labeling them.
Exactly.
And throwing things away.
As Jason discovered, you never know what you're going to find. So in any case, starting in August, we're going to be doing this a part of every day.
No, well, I'm going to be doing it for 7-hour stretches the way Jason and I were doing it, from noon to 7.
Okay.
Yep.
Works for me. So, some of which I will be there for. And so basically we're recruiting volunteers. So, so if you're interested in doing that,
you're going to add it to the sign-up sheet downstairs.
Yeah, the sign-up sheet downstairs. I think that's it. Thank you, everybody, for coming. It's brilliant to see you.
Thank you.
For everybody here who has been here for Ted's birthday, I want to say that Brewster and Mary would like to wish Ted an amazing birthday. And we have birthday cake down in the lobby for everyone. And please join the continued celebration of Ted's amazing 80 years on this planet Earth.
And if you want to say you drank, If you want to say you drank my Kool-Aid, there's a big dispenser downstairs. It's green.
It's totally green.
And it is Kool-Aid.
And it's Kool-Aid, and we love him, and we're so delighted that he's part of our family. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. That was wonderful.
As usual, I will expect what do you call it, to be rated a 6 out of 10. Which is
Well, I didn't hear it. I'll have to watch. I'll watch the video.
Well, I just meant the entire evening.
Oh yeah.
We put it together. You'll never be satisfied with what I love about it.
Now this is Mark's collection. I gave him those.
I'm ready, Ted.
Hello.
I got you.
Hey.
Great photo, Ted.
It's wonderful. Yes, great photo, Mark. It's wonderful.
Happy birthday.
Thank you so much. Where did I put my bag? Here it is. Ooh.
Ted, when you were at Swaffham,
Yeah.
did you know a classmate named Peter Howard?
Who?
Peter Howard, or a college mate. He went on and found serendipity books, and I think he was born in 35.
Did he have when? 35.
He died a few years. He ran serendipity books.
No. Did he have sisters named Howard? There were 3 women named Howard that I knew. Or 2 or 3. I'm not sure.
Oh, the first one's a bitch.
Yeah. Okay, that goes in there.
I can go through the rest of my life without a picture with you.
Okay, just a second. Let me get this
Yes,
out of
please
my
take your
hand.
time. Thomas Teddy the Bear introduced us about 10 years ago.
Okay. Was that 10 years ago?
Yeah. Say Thursday.
Thursday.
I'm in touch with him all the time.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah, he did send me something recently.
He's been an angel in my life.
Mark Graham, your stuff is here. Oh well.
So your life, I'm 73.
Mhm.
Your life and my life have the same sort of weird stuff.
Mhm.
And so that must be the reason that I'm here.
There you go.
Oh, it's so nice the way you
Coincidence is amazing.
Well, magnetism, I would call it.
2 things.
Yes.
One, Dean Tribble specifically asked me to say happy birthday.
Wonderful.
He couldn't make it, but he really wished he could.
A sec.
Let us in your birthday.
Okay. Well, I've got
Around your
to pack up here first.
You can come back up here.
Well, I'll keep my important one with me. Okay.
The other thing is, the whole biostatus thing really is important. And I've really come to appreciate it more over the years. I'm in a situation at Google where I'm constantly moving between 2 different groups that I participate in. In one, I'm kind of lower status, and the other, I'm higher status. I've never experienced before.
That's status versus biostatus.
There you go.
Yes.
Yeah, biostatus is an internal mechanism corresponding to social status.
Yes.
Let's start. And keeping my balance. And balance is the one problem.
Easy.
Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, I'm the director of
Thank you.
All right, Ted.
Very good. Yes.
Time for your birthday cake, darling.
Got it.
I gotta grab you. We've lit the candle.
Good to see you.
The obligatory
selfie. Good to see you, pal.
Sing the birthday.
There we are.
You look like somebody.
Come on. Good.
Excellent. All right, there we go.
Right.
Can you hold it in front of your face?
There you go. One pass along happy birthday.
Say more about
It was really nice.
Let's go have your birthday
Yes,
cake, darling.
okay.
Because everyone wants to sing the shit out of you.
Oh boy.
I am not kidding.
Okay.
Downstairs, they are all like, Ted, let's do it.
Jesus Christ.
I know.
This is awesome.
You have a ton of fucking friends.
I'm gonna have a.
Am I wrong?